Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of the Next Gen Bets podcast. This is our first college football only episode, so I hope you guys enjoy that.
This is it. We're going in. It's time to show them what we're made of. Does that song ring a bell to any of you, Connor?
No, not me. No.
That
But
is the official song of 2015 ESPN college football
I see
history.
I was gonna say it had something to do with college football
Right.
or the
Yeah.
playoffs.
That
Um,
fun fact, we had a hockey game and out in North Berkshire. I got my tea before the game, and then I listened to this song 13 times in a row while drinking my tea because I made a challenge myself. I had to finish my tea before I could listen to a different song. And it was a fire song at the time for a 10-year-old or whatever old I was then, or
and
12. I was
kind of
12.
it's kind of an inside scoop on how Kyle's brain works. It's still like that to this day. But today we're gonna talk about the bracket itself. We have done our bracket challenges. We did two brackets each. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then at the end of we'll talk about spreads too. And then at the end we'll get into a little controversy that we've seen floating around the internet. So we'll just kind of slide on in. We'll talk about the bracket. Kyle, you think we should go over the whole bracket? I mean, it's known for
Uh,
us,
well, I
but
think
do we go
we
over it?
didn't we ran through the bracket, so let's jump right into it. I got a, my A bracket, and then I have a more fun bracket I want to call it. And you have what a good one and then a safer one is how you worded it.
I when I was making it, I said that, but now that I'm thinking about it, they're pretty much the same brackets. The one side's a little different than the other, but they're pretty much the same. I honestly think there's only one thing different about my second bracket, so I'll just say I have my bracket and then
Okay.
the possible alternative.
All right, I got a good. I have mine are pretty polar opposites here, so I
Yeah, no,
like what
mine are.
that. You want to start it? We'll start with Clemson, Texas. What you got in your first one?
In my main bracket, I have Clemson beating Texas.
I have Texas, and as you know, this is hard for me. And the college basketball fan in my mind always says you got to pick a 12 against a five, but I'm gonna go with the five there. I'm taking Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State. This one's tougher probably for you than me.
I took Tennessee.
Yep, see, know it. I took Ohio State.
Yeah, can't fade Tennessee there.
I you gotta support it. I'm trying to not let my fandom get in this one. That changes drastically in the second bracket. But moving on, 11-6 SMU and Penn State. This is my upset. I got SMU here.
I got Penn State here. We are polar opposites up to this point.
We are. That's good. That's good for content.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I watched Penn State play and I saw firsthand how garbage they are. So I'm
See, it
taking
hurt me to. I do want to say this before we go. It hurt me to pick that because I don't like Penn State. I do think they're terrible for their ranking, but for some reason, my thought when I think of Penn State is they find a way. So it's kind
they
of like
do. They
I,
do.
I think they'll just figure out.
I don't want them to get I just don't want to see them succeed.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
don't either. Trust me, I don't either.
and then Indiana, Notre Dame, another fan interest for you. I have Notre Dame here.
I took Notre Dame too.
Yeah, I think this one's I don't know. Indiana's got a cool story, but it screams Notre Dame in this lot. The sevens typically beat the tens in March Madness.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I
That's the
think it's because of
trend.
Notre Dame. I was a little nervous about this game when I first when I first like heard the ranking, and I looked at it and
That's all of these schools. Like all of these schools have the history of losing stupid games. Like look at the favorites: Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. They all have the history of doing something dumb.
yeah,
Like Ohio State did it last week or two with their last game against Michigan.
yeah.
Penn State almost lost to Bowling Green earlier this year. They do it pretty much every year. They have a choke loss, and then Notre Dame is like known for that. And what was it like 6 years of Texas pretending to be back and not being back and never making the 14 playoff? Or no, they made it. They made it like 2 years ago, but they had a nice run of them thinking they're back and they just weren't back. The Sam Ellinger moment, remember that? Yeah. So
But yeah, so I think Notre Dame will win, but I'll tell you, I can't trust them. It's hard for me to trust them. But I'm gonna go with my gut and how they've been doing recently, and I'm gonna trust Notre Dame.
all right. So moving on. I have Texas in Arizona State, and I got Texas winning this one. You got Clemson in Arizona State. Who do you got?
I have Arizona State winning this one.
All right, all right. So we're just nowhere near each other
Yeah,
here. I
completely
have
outside of
I
the.
got Ohio State and Oregon in a rematch. I
Mhm.
have Ohio State winning in this bracket. You got Tennessee and Oregon. Who you got?
Guess what? I got Oregon winning this one.
That's, we didn't plan this beforehand, so
Yeah, no, this was not planned. We actually haven't even heard each other's brackets. This
oh
is
we
our first time.
yeah. All right, I got SMU and Boise State. I got SMU in this one. You have Penn State and Boise State. Who you got
I,
there?
I have Penn State in this one, so I do have
Okay.
Penn State losing.
This is getting hard to keep track of me here because we got none of the same picks, and I think it's going to continue.
Yes.
No, we both have Notre Dame and Georgia.
Yes.
Uh, I have Georgia in this one.
I
Even
took
with
Notre
Gunnar
Dame in this one.
Stockton. You got Notre Dame?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right, look,
I took Notre Dame.
we don't have a single of the same Final Four. That's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
no.
it's getting really hard to follow along here, at least for me. I have Texas and Ohio State in my semi, and I got Ohio State advancing. You have Arizona State and Oregon, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and I'm gonna bet you go with Oregon here.
I do go with Oregon here.
So one of us have Ohio State in the natty. I have Ohio State. Connor has Oregon. Second semi, I have SMU in Georgia. I have Georgia advancing. I think they can get by Notre Dame and SMU with a backup quarterback on that little cupcake schedule they get here. Or cupcake playoff run. I guess you can't call it a schedule, but you know what I mean. And
Hmm.
you have Penn State and Notre Dame here, 6-7. Who
Yes.
you
I got Notre Dame advancing to the Natty.
All right, so my natty is Ohio State and Georgia, a rematch of a couple years ago with that god awful kick as the clock struck midnight for the new year. Love to remind my Ohio State fan friend about that moment. And unfortunately, I have Ohio State winning the natty. This one, I think Georgia's run I put them on runs out when they face a real team in Ohio State there. Um, you have Oregon and Notre Dame, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I have Oregon and Notre Dame.
And I think
And
this is where your Notre Dame miracle run ends, doesn't it?
yes, it is. This is where Notre Dame runs into the wall and Oregon wins it. I have Oregon to win it all for me.
I got Ohio State in my what I'm calling my in my A bracket. I don't think it's like safer than the other one. I just think it's like I could be wrong, and maybe Clemson is the team that has a run instead of SMU, but I think one of the dogs is gonna get a win in the first round. They're
Yeah,
all close to the same spread, like same spread distance, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I'm hoping Tennessee is the dog that gets the win.
Yeah,
That's
see,
what I
that's
want.
that's 9-8 though. Like that's I don't
Yeah,
count.
there's still crazy dogs in that though, isn't the
I
spread?
know, but
The spread's over a
well, I
touchdown.
think the I think the reasoning for that is Ohio State either wins or loses a close game. So if it's close, I like Tennessee. Like if Tennessee's gonna cover, they're gonna win outright. And if Ohio State wins, they're winning by like at least 10. That's
Yeah,
just how they play. Like if it's a close game, they tried choking the Penn State game and Penn State just wouldn't do it. And then I think Ohio State still ended up winning by 10. I don't remember the final, even though I was there. But and like we saw against Michigan, they just Ohio State let Michigan stay around and then Michigan won it. And Ohio State's offense in any sort of crucial situation is useless. Like we saw Will Howard slide when the game was ending instead of winning the game, he slid. So not surprising, really, I guess.
yeah.
And moving on, we'll do our second brackets. I think this one's more fun. I'm titling it the Big Ten bracket. Um, you'll see why in a bit. And this is just slightly different for you, not too much change.
Yeah, not really. I think honestly, this bracket looks like your first bracket now that I'm looking at it.
Okay. Um,
Minus a couple things.
I got Clemson beating Texas in this one. Who you got in that game?
I got Texas in this one.
They have a lot of switches. I got Tennessee beating Ohio State in this one. That's
Yeah, I stayed strong on Tennessee.
one.
Yeah, I got
I
Tennessee
think
still.
that's basically what I did the whole way around. I got Penn State beating SMU this time.
And then I got SMU beating Penn State this time.
And then I figured I'd give Indiana the win over Notre Dame. So that's why I called it the Big Ten bracket.
Oh, I get it. I get it. I didn't do that though.
Although
Notre
Ohio
Dame.
State, I didn't let Ohio State go through, but that's because I gave them the natty in the other one. So this one you
Yeah, yeah,
bounce,
exactly.
everybody else goes
Yeah.
through. So then I got Clemson and Arizona State, and homer pick, I'm taking Clemson in that one.
I got Texas and Arizona State, and I switched it up this time, and I got Texas advancing to the semis.
Yep. I think Texas has an easy path. I was contemplating making them go on a run. I just don't think they're that good,
Yeah,
but
no.
they have the opportunity to get to the semi and meet one of these. The compared to the Tennessee, Ohio State, or Oregon path, Texas is much calmer.
Yeah.
Um, that other game, I got Oregon and Tennessee, and I got Oregon winning this one.
Yeah, I got the exact same.
Yep. And then I got Penn State and Boise, and I got Penn State in this one.
I have SMU and Boise, and I have
Did
SMU
you
winning that.
did you have you had Tennessee in both brackets? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I had Tennessee in both brackets, but I have them losing to Oregon in both brackets.
Okay, I thought you said Ohio State for a second. That's on me. Um, and then I convinced myself that because all mine are switched. And then I got Indiana and Georgia in the semi, and I have Georgia advancing still. I think Georgia advances
Uh,
even with
in that
stock.
matchup, yeah,
Yep.
I have Notre Dame in that one, and then I have Notre Dame beating Georgia in that one. Now that also could be a bias thing, but I do think Notre Dame could actually beat Georgia without. Well, honestly, Carson
Dude,
Beck's
that's
ass. So
like
like,
Stockton came like he didn't finish the game. I mean, he missed one play, but Georgia was down at half. It was what 7-3 at halftime, I want to say, or no,
yeah,
6-3 because they had two field goals, I think.
yeah,
Um, and then Georgia came out, switched to Stockton, and immediately is either second drive or first drive they scored on a nice drive. Like them, their running game, and they'll get the screens probably going with Stockton that we saw like Stetson Bennett do. Um, Georgia with a not great quarterback is kind of scary in my opinion. Like with Stetson Bennett those years, they were kind of just great, and it's not like he was, a first round pick or top recruit. You know what I mean? So that's why I think everyone was scared when they had Beck this year and last year, just because he was actually talented, like coming out of high school and like expected to be a top pick compared to Bennett. So, and they came back against Texas with pretty much their backup quarterback in that whole second half. So I don't think it really is going to affect them that much. That's why I have them getting to
yeah.
the
I mean,
having
I don't
them
disagree.
advancing in both of my brackets.
I don't disagree. I do think that Gunner Stockton can function. I just think that I don't know. Maybe call it false hope. I just think Notre Dame
It
might be
is
above.
that
Notre
is
Dame
hope
has a
though,
good
playing a
defense.
backup quarterback. That is hope.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got a good defense. But I'm because that's what I was when I was picking it, I was
Yeah.
thinking like Carson Beck's not as impressive this year as as he was
I think
last year.
you'd rather Carson Beck, I think,
Yeah,
than
yeah, like he
Stockton.
makes
Just because
mistakes. He makes a lot of
he'll do
mistakes.
something stupid.
So like that's why I was like I don't know if it's really an advantage to be seeing Gunner, but I just kind of like I don't
Yeah.
know. Just
Gunner's pretty I think he's more athletic, it seemed.
yeah. I
Body.
didn't watch the second half, I'm not gonna lie.
I
So I
was
didn't watch him
working,
play
but I
that
was
much.
watching it. And that game is that potential, whoever's playing Georgia, either Indiana or Notre Dame, it's in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. So you don't have to play Georgia in Atlanta, which does make a slight difference. Every time they play in Atlanta, they get a nice, Georgia strong crowd. But let's move on to the semi. I have Clemson and Oregon in this one, and this would be a blowout if it happens. I have Oregon moving on to the Natty in this one. I think that's seems to be like I think that's the consensus pick from everybody. I think it was like 30 or 40% of the ESPN brackets had Oregon winning the Natty. There's always
Yeah.
a favorite amongst the fans.
Yeah, I contribute to that for sure.
Yep.
In this bracket as well. I have Texas and Oregon in this game, and I have Oregon advancing to the Natty again.
Yeah. Texas can't get by Georgia. I don't see any reason to believe why they could get past Oregon.
Yeah.
And then the other semi, I have Penn State and Georgia, and this is why I call it the Big Ten bracket. I got Penn State going on, and my championship is a rematch of the Big Ten championship. I got Oregon and Penn State.
I have SMU and Notre Dame in that one, and I have Notre Dame beating SMU. And so my national championship is the same in both brackets, with it being Oregon and Notre Dame in both of them.
Nice. And then I have Oregon um beating Penn State. I think they let them kind of hang around in that Big Ten championship. So in this version of it, I think they smack them if this is what happens. I
I
think Penn
do.
State's
If it were to happen, yeah.
kind of dies out on their run.
Yeah, I like that. I would agree. I have the same exact result. You think I would switch it up, but I think I like being right more than anything. So if it did get to this, I do think Oregon would beat Notre Dame. So I have Oregon beating Notre Dame in both of my brackets, meaning Oregon is my natty champ or my natty pick for both brackets. So kind of shows you how strong I think about Oregon. which is crazy because at the beginning of the year, that was how I felt about Texas. Like I really did feel like Texas was like the
I
best team in
never
college
believed
football.
Texas. Never.
I fully bought into Texas. I thought they were the best team in college football, and then
I was on the Georgia train just because they kind of steamrolled Clemson, and then it would have made me look better if they steamrolled everybody else. But
mhm.
it didn't happen. Um, but yeah, just looking at this bracket again, like as a whole, um, I think we're both in on Big Ten teams, a lot of Big Ten success in these brackets. Connor has Ohio State losing twice, but that's because he's a Tennessee fan. But we both have um, all four of our brackets had Big Ten schools winning. So that's interesting. Maybe when we're looking for bets, we can find a prop where you can bet the winner by conference. And we could get a Big Ten team at, probably like plus 150, I'd say, just because they got the most, they got the four.
Yeah,
Is
so
it?
the odds would
Yeah,
probably be a little bit lower, but
yeah, they got the
um,
four in here.
yeah,
Um,
I do think it did just
I,
happen.
I especially with Georgia's, their Georgia odds are going to be lower with Beck out. Texas seems flawed. Um, I don't know about you. I know you're going to have a Tennessee perspective, but to me, it feels like these aren't the best SEC teams.
No,
Does
they're
that
not.
does that make like not even
No,
just
I
this
agree.
year, of the SEC teams that didn't make it? I feel like the ones that didn't make it might be better. If that
Oh,
makes
in that sense, I don't know if I agree with that, but
like in their current state, like with Beck being hurt.
oh,
C is kind of good, and then with Texas looking, lost, and
Texas has looked weird like the last
they
half of
haven't played
the season.
anybody, and
Yeah,
they get in as a five, but they really haven't. Like they didn't play Bama, they didn't play Ole Miss, they only
yeah.
played A&M and Georgia, and they lost to Georgia twice, and they didn't really impress me against A&M.
See,
Um,
but for me, the thing is like the other teams that would have gone in would be Alabama, who
yeah,
I don't find
I think
impressive at all.
Alabama could be randomly impressive.
Yeah, they
Like
can, but that's
they
the thing.
could
Like,
have a
I don't want
day.
a team that
No,
could.
I know, but I'm saying like Alabama's like the wild card. Like I think if they were in that 11, like they probably would have been in, the way the path lines up, I could see them going on a run because if they found a way to beat Penn State, they'd like ride the momentum for
No, yeah,
probably
I
a
agree. I
natty
agree.
appearance at the least.
But
They like that
I
side of
mean,
the
I
bracket
do
this year.
think South Carolina is a good team right
Yeah,
now.
that's where I was going next.
Yeah, I
I think
figured that's who you're really
and
talking
then
about.
even Ole Miss, I know they
I
lost
hate Ole
at the
Miss
end.
now. I cannot.
But we're gonna talk later about like the 12 quarterbacks in this tournament, and like those guys would be probably top six easily
Yeah.
between Milrow, Sellers, Sellers would be like top three in my opinion, and even Jackson Dart would be probably higher than Will Howard, who's in the middle of the pack here. So like just from that perspective, like I'm not used to seeing. I don't know, just it just feels weird. Georgia with the backup. I mean, Nico is a true freshman. Yeah, I know you're big on, and I think he'll be great in the future. But it seems like one of those times where the true freshman just struggles because he's a true freshman going on the road to Ohio State.
Yeah. We'll see
Your
what
first
happens with
road
them.
game you struggled with in the SEC at Arkansas, wasn't that your first
Yeah,
loss?
at Arkansas. But no, we played Oklahoma in Oklahoma. That was his first road
It
game.
was second road
Yeah,
SEC game
second
you
road
lost.
game. But it was like a weird time in the season for
Oh, I
Tennessee.
know, I
Like
know.
they had like they
You
went
had
through
your
a weird
struggles
ass
on those.
phase where their offense was just like on training wheels for no fucking reason. And
Yeah.
like it was so frustrating. And like even still, they do like weird stuff. Like I feel like they get really cautious with Nico for no reason. And it's crazy to me because if you watch Nico, like his confidence and like his ability to maintain like his keep composure, like it's
Yeah.
impressive. He's so
He
able to maintain his composure, but we act like he lashes out and just gets all emotional and shit.
and he enrolled to Tennessee early, right?
Yeah, he was an earlier
Like
role.
he's like technically ahead
Yeah,
almost.
he's technically like a second
Fifth
semester
semester, right?
sophomore. Yeah, he's like in
Fifth.
his fifth semester. No,
Because didn't he have a red shirt? Did he red shirt or no?
yeah, he redshirted.
So he's two
Yeah,
years
so
in,
he'd be in
and
his
then he did
fourth
this spring
semester.
before. Well, but he enrolled early for that spring before.
Yeah,
So that'd be
exactly. So
five.
he'd be in his
Well,
fourth
this would
semester.
be four. This spring would be five. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes. Yeah, I get you. I think in baseball where the sports at the end of the year. Um, but yeah, it just feels like even the ACC teams, we got SMU and Clemson. I think everybody knows the best quarterback in the conference would be Cam Ward. So uh I don't know, just kind of interesting. And then I think everybody got at least one win in both of our brackets, except for or you had Arizona State some love, but none of us showed Boise some love. So
Yeah,
uh
no, I may. Hey, I'm not gonna be mad if Boise gets a win, especially if
Boise's the team we root for, but in bracket sense, we're not picking them.
yeah, because I mean I could see it, especially with how they performed against Oregon earlier in the year, but it's too risky to take in my
I
opinion.
could also see them like getting slightly screwed by some officiating because I think the people who control the playoff want them to lose, because they want to get rid of the bye thing for these teams.
Yeah.
Not to go conspiracy theorist here, but they want Boise and Arizona State to lose so they can not give them buys next year. If those two teams win, it'd look bad for the or they'd support the conference champions getting buys, but I think that's what everybody wants.
See, but like the thing is I don't know. Like I don't know because I'm definitely a hater on a lot of things, but I find like I understand the frustration that everybody has, but I also find it very annoying how everybody wants it to change like immediately. Like everybody thinks that the whole system is broken
Yeah.
and it's our first year with it. It's like let
Well,
it work.
that's it. Everybody, if anybody with a brain would have known this was going to happen, is we had issues with four, and so
Yeah,
expanding, well, includes others, just means you're going to have more issues for the same. Like it's the same thing. Somebody's getting left out.
exactly.
That's why I think they should have made it more rigid, where like the Power Four conference, if you appear in the Power Four conference championship, you're just in anyway. So there's your 8 slots, and then it's just you could, I guess you could give one to the best Power Five team or group of five team, and then the remaining three could be at large. But I think if you made it more rigid and it was less at large, it'd be like March Madness has so many conferences, so many auto bids.
Yeah.
So only the like really 1 through 11 in the March Madness can be at large bids, and it's usually only like 3 through 11 because the top, 8 teams tend to win their conference. Um, so like if you're not a top 25 team throughout the whole season in college basketball, you're really not getting in unless you win your conference championship. Because the way with the amount of teams that end up stealing a bid by, a mid team in a Power Five conference winning the conference, the other teams are still getting at large bids because they're, 10th ranked. Like I think it happened in the ACC a couple years ago. Georgia Tech with Jose Alvarado won the tournament, the ACC tournament, and then all the other ACC teams like Duke, North Carolina, they didn't get left out because Georgia Tech went on a run. So it meant that whoever was on the bubble, one of those bubble teams got pushed out. So that's kind of like it, but that's just the way it is. Like it's an established system where this has so much more um, at large bids where it's more of a we can make arguments because they got in just because like even saw people making arguments for Texas to be left out because they lost, or if Georgia lost to Texas, Georgia would have 3 losses. Why should they be in as an at-large over Bama who beat them, or South Carolina who finished hot, or Ole Miss who beat them as well? So if they just made it, you make the conference championship for these conferences, you get in. And I know we'll have some years where it's a bad team that makes the conference
Yeah,
championship on
that's
the
what I was about to say. I was about to say it's
but
gonna get shady sometimes.
but yeah, like what Iowa if Iowa State got in,
Yeah, like the
but I
Big
think
12 is gonna have some shady years and
yeah.
then
But I think that just goes back to why did we have to make super conferences if this was happening? Like
no,
if it
yeah.
was Texas and Oklahoma still in there, you'd have no problem with it because it'd be
Yeah.
pretty much guaranteed one of those makes it, if not both, from the auto bid. So, um, but yeah, there's just we could go on for hours about the fly. I always wanted 16. I think that would have been cooler,
16 would
but
be cool. I'm also call me
because
crazy.
then you don't
I
have a
don't
buys
hate
argument.
I don't hate the BCS model. Like I really don't hate it. Like
Well, I just don't get. We used the AP poll for the first what 6 or 7 weeks of the season, and it's
yeah,
like, all
the
right.
AP poll is much better than
Here's the college football. Like
the
that's
college
the way it
football
was for
playoff
the
ranking.
14 playoff. Like we're using these rankings to promote our TV and only show you the top 25 scores on the bottom line. And then as soon as it hits November, here's the college football playoff rankings, and they're always different because this one has more influence from idiots, where the AP has 200 something voters. So all your bias kind of gets sorted out by everybody else's bias.
Yeah.
But
I think the AP is 10 times better than the CFP.
I agree. But all right, let's talk some spreads real quick, and then we'll talk about those quarterbacks that we kind of already started a little bit about. So our first game of the playoff is Indiana and Notre Dame. So this one opened. This one's I think the biggest line mover so far. Started at 8.5, down to 7.5 in favor of Notre Dame. Over under is at 50. That was 51 and a half. Now it's 50 and a half. Indiana best value is plus 240. Notre Dame best value is minus 285. Any initial reactions to those numbers?
I do think that this is the one. Now, obviously, we'll get into this more, but so it's kind of gonna spoil it. But I do think that this is the one game where the favorite covers.
Really? All right. I was
Yeah,
gonna
I
go. Okay.
I, I do think that this is the only game where
Notre Dame covers
favorite
this.
covers. Yeah,
If it dropped to 6.5, I'd much like it better, but the two scores is kind of bothering me.
yeah, I do agree. But I can totally see it being a 10-point game. I can totally see it being a 10
I,
point
I
game.
could see it. I could see it. Um, I think Indiana plus 240 is decent value though, because like they're what are they one ranked apart in the actual rankings or
Yeah,
no?
I believe so.
For one ranking apart and then plus 240, that's pretty good value. I know it's an away game, but
And I also just think like I do think Notre Dame's a far better team. Um, when you look at them
yeah, if you go
stacked
through,
against each other, if you
yeah.
like, really looked at the teams.
Well, see, everybody discredits Indiana for that Ohio State game, but I feel like if you actually, the people that actually watched it understand it was closer.
Yeah.
Like I want to say it was close in the first half, and then Indiana either they either fumbled or muffed a punt, or they did something stupid that it just like snowballed from there. Like if they don't make a dumb mistake, they can easily either win or lose by less than seven, like lose by a field goal, that type of thing. So that's
Yeah, well,
why.
that's like a lot of the. I mean, that's pretty much a lot of games. If you look at
Yeah,
the
that's
final
kind of
score,
the
it's
trend is
like
kind
those
of that
scores.
7.5, 8 number for these games. Um, and then moving on, we got SMU and Penn State also on that Friday night. Started at plus eight, minus eight. Now we're at plus 8.5 for SMU. Over unders at 53.5. I think that's the highest we're gonna see. SMU money line plus 280. Best value for Penn State minus 310. So kind of like same spread, at least open the same, but different, vastly different money lines. We went from plus 240, plus 280. So clearly more value on SMU. And I think that's the one that I might take
I
is
like
if
that.
I had to pick a dog, I think it's SMU.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. I think SMU covers without a doubt, and then I
Yeah.
would consider taking
They
them.
earn my respect. Like if I bet on them, if I take them plus 8.5, I have to watch. If they get down by 30, I'll have to watch it out because of what they did to Clemson, where they came back in 10 minutes real time, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes of game time, and they tied the game up. It was scary as a Clemson fan watching it, but they're good.
Yeah, they're legit. I did. I mean, I haven't been crazy high on them, but I have been. I like to think that I have been saying they're better than they're given credit for. Like they're kind of in the same boat with Indiana. Like they don't play anybody, whatever. Like watch them play somebody real. I mean, like I think they're pretty legit. And I think they'll definitely give Penn State a run for their money, especially since Penn State does not blow teams out. Like they'll be competitive with UCLA. They'll be competitive with, the Colorado School of Mines. Like it doesn't matter. They'll play a close game.
Yeah, Bowling Green was the
Yeah,
team.
exactly.
I think I said that game was Friday at 8. No, it's Notre
Yeah.
Dame was Friday at 8. Penn
Yeah, I was
State
gonna correct you.
is
Yeah, I forgot.
Saturday at 12. And then Clemson, Texas is Saturday at 4. Very excited to not have to work during that. Clemson is plus 11, so they moved up. They were plus 10.5. Slight, everything's a slight change. Over under dropped from 53.5 to 51.5. And Clemson money line has moved up. It was 310, it's now 340, and best value for Texas money line is minus 380. So the spread moves up, money line moves up. I think this is the biggest underdog. Yeah, this is the biggest underdog for the first round. And I also kind of like Clemson plus 11 here.
No, I love Clemson plus 11. Clemson is also talking about with SMU, talking about potential value bets for their money line. What'd you say their money line was?
Plus 340.
Yeah, like that's a money line I would consider taking. I Clemson plays, they win. Like Clemson wins those games.
Yeah, they have the history.
they win those games. And so and
Um,
Texas is honestly at their lowest point of the year in my opinion. Like they
yeah,
started really hot, they started good. And then I mean this is also just fans being fans, but I mean I'm seeing people say that Quinn Ewers shouldn't start the game. And I mean that's
yeah,
like
that's
I said,
pretty
fans being
bold.
fans, but
I
like
want to say this is the only matchup with a common opponent, right? Is that correct? That's correct, right? I think
Yeah,
I'd have to maybe
with
fact check.
Georgia.
They both
Yeah.
played Georgia. So
Yeah, they both played Georgia.
Clemson obviously got killed by Georgia to start the season. Texas got killed by Georgia at home halfway through the season, and then Texas just lost to Georgia at the end of the season, neutral field, but it was kind of like favored at it was same place Clemson played Georgia in Atlanta. Um, I feel like the start of the season was probably Georgia's peak. They were number one coming in the season. I don't think anybody really contested that. Midway through the season, I think that Texas game was after the Bama loss, so
It
Georgia
was
was kind of
after, I think.
a little bit. Yeah, Georgia was exposed a little bit at this point, and they still killed Texas. I think that was what 30-15,
Yeah,
and it
something
really wasn't that close.
crazy.
Texas kind of scored a garbage touchdown, I want to say, and then end of the season, I'd say arguably Georgia was at their lowest coming into the SEC championship after the Georgia Tech game and then losing their quarterback and they still beat Texas. So uh I don't know. I think with that information, I feel like Clemson has a real chance
No, yeah, I
from
agree.
that.
I like I said earlier when I was talking about the Notre Dame game, but I like the underdogs in a lot of these games because
Me
they're
too.
just
And then
like in my opinion, Clemson's not a real 12 seed. Like I understand they're actually ranked lower than that, but like
yeah, they're ranked lower. Well,
they're not a real
they're
12.
17th in the CFP or 16th in the CFP and like 13th or 12th in the AP. So
Yeah.
and
And,
like
and then Texas is an unproven five.
if
So
you just flipped that South Carolina game, Clemson would be like 10.
yeah,
Clemson probably
they'd
is
be
not in
up
that
there.
this matchup if they beat them. I think they don't. I think South Carolina's not getting credit for that, and Clemson's not getting credit for that. Like that, that's treated as a bad loss when it shouldn't be. And I didn't get into the Clemson side really in that. Clemson when they played Georgia was kind of almost their weakest point to start the season. A lot of true freshman receivers. I think three true freshman receivers. And they didn't really have a run game established at this point. And then, like, if you watch some of the clips from that game, the blocking is just awful. It's like they didn't put enough effort in summer camp. And then we saw it against SMU. It's much cleaned up. Even against South Carolina, they had a nice lead in that game. And then the defense kind of blew it with Sellers. The Clemson struggles against mobile quarterbacks, and Texas doesn't really have that unless they go to Arch. But like against SMU and against South Carolina, Clemson easily dominated early, and then the mobile quarterback got them into the game in both of those, and they don't really have to worry about that facing Ewers. So just another thing there. And then the last game, Saturday at 8, we have probably the most exciting one. Um, Tennessee and Ohio State. Tennessee opened as +7, and now it's +7.5. So just a slight change. Same with the over-under was 46.5. Now we're at 47. And Tennessee money line was +195, is up to +220. And Ohio State money line was -238, is now -265. So it looks like money's coming in on Ohio State, but the spread is coming in on Tennessee because the spread hasn't changed and the money line has changed. And then over unders, but I think the under I like in this one.
Yeah, because Tennessee has I don't think Tennessee gets enough credit for their defense. Their defense is
Their
in
defense is good.
their
Uh,
offense is their very slow moving methodical offense, which is weird because
Same with
they're
Ohio State.
yeah, but Tennessee's offense in previous years, specifically, especially under Heupel, has been advertised as like a quick strike, like they're just gonna go quick, and
I
that's
think
the
it's
case. But they just don't have the power that
yeah.
to do that consistently. So they end up just running it a lot with Sampson because he's a guy.
You
Um,
would uh you would know better than me, but I think it's like quick strike because it's you have a lot of speed threats that like
yeah,
can
deep
break plays,
threats.
but it's you're not the same you're not deep ball threats, but you're
Yeah,
just ex like you have explosive play potential with your speed guys, but you're not like not 30-yard passes like you were at Milton.
yeah, and well, and then also like the offense itself is structured behind having explosive play potential because you'll
Yeah.
run three plays in 30 seconds and you'll run it up the middle, you do a screen pass, you do a slant, and then all of a sudden you got a guy running like just straight down the sideline and you're like, oh shit, like
Yeah, you guys run that like deep spread like
yeah,
formation.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the
And like
hype.
we always have guys out wide all the time. And our offense the offense moves so fast that the defense has a hard time like resetting and being like, okay, like you can't make many switches, anything like that. So but Ohio State has a really powerful offense. And I do worry about Tennessee's depth at DB. We have Gerard McCoy, who's an absolute stud, but Ohio State's so deep in when it comes to wide receivers that it's a little
Yeah.
alarming.
And yeah, in Ohio State with Will Howard, and at least Will Howard, even in Kansas State, he like almost shrinks in the big games. Like I saw him struggle at Penn State through to pick six in that one. And then against Michigan, he struggled. He did play well against Oregon, but Oregon, I guess, showed that they're more of an offensive team than a defensive team, like in that Penn State game. So um I think the under is my favorite. That under I think is probably my most confident pick without doing any sort of like just eye testing and feeling it
Yeah,
out. So,
no, that under is good. That's a quality under.
yeah. All right, to end this podcast out, we are going to talk about a list made by CFB Report on Instagram. You guys should check him out. He's got some nice content. It's at CFBREP. He ranked all the 12 starting quarterbacks for the college football playoff. So really, it's kind of top 11 because obviously Gunnar Stockton's at the bottom with his lack of playing all season. But I'm going to read you these quick, and then I think we have decided we got like two major I guess beefs, if you will, about this list. So number one's Dylan Gabriel. I feel like that's consensus there. Number two, Cade Klubnik, who I feel like a lot of people are gonna get mad at, but if you look at the numbers, he's up there. He's like fifth in Heisman voting right now. I think he's like fifth or sixth, depending where you look. Aller at three from Penn State, Ewers at four, Curtis Rourke at five, Will Howard at six, Sam Levitt at seven, Kevin Jennings at eight, Riley Leonard at nine, Nico Imalava at 10, Mattis Magson at 11, and then Gunnar Stockton to round us out at 12. I'll let you start, Connor. I think the viewers, if they've been listening so far, they know where you're going to go with this. So go right ahead.
Yeah, so the direction I'm heading is talking about Nico and Riley. It might be a little bit of a surprise because I don't think we've gone crazy in depth on it on the podcast, but I actually despise Riley Leonard as a Notre Dame fan. I really fucking hate Riley Leonard, but whatever. We're gonna not shit on him too much. All I'm saying is Riley Leonard is too high on this list.
He's
Um,
a running back.
he's a running back that plays quarterback for Notre Dame, which is typical Notre Dame pull. Why not? You know, we're this massive brand that I'm sure plenty of kids would like to play for a single season, but we decided to pick the Duke transfer that runs the football more than anything. He's basically like a terrible Bryson Daly. Um, I guess not terrible. I'm gonna take that back. Actually, I apologize. But like, cause he can throw, but not as well. He's got like 5 picks on the year. Two of them were to NIU, which is just hideous. He's got 14 rushing touchdowns, tons of rushing yards. Anyways, he's a running back. He doesn't deserve to be that high up. I arguably would put him at like 11 where Maddox is, but that's kind of an argue. Like that's kind of crazy. But comfortably at 10.
Alex is good, but
He just doesn't play the same competition.
And so my thing with this is Riley Leonard's almost regressed in his college career. 2022 for Duke, he had almost 3,000 passing yards to go along with 700 rushing yards, 20 passing touchdowns, 13 rushing touchdowns. And this is in the ACC with Duke. And then playing as Notre Dame, you basically have the same schedule, like give and take a couple games. So it's not like we jumped like Will Howard, Big Ten or Big 12 to Big Ten, Kansas State to Ohio State, crazy, schedule switch. Or Dylan Gabriel from UCF to Oregon. It's Duke to Notre Dame. They basically play the same like garbage ACC schedule, and he's almost 1,000 less passing yards, four less passing touchdowns. Um, the rating is similar, but rating is a flawed stat, and much more rushes. There are same amount of carries, but more rushing yards and one more rushing touchdown. So same, pretty much the same runner, but 1,000 less passing yards, and really the same schedule, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll admit that
Less
he doesn't
touchdowns too.
necessarily have the most amazing receivers in college football to throw to, but if you watch him play, a lot of the times it's not the receivers, it's not them being shit. It's quite literally just Riley not getting the ball where it needs to be. I remember the whole first half of the season, I'm sitting there watching these games and I'm just wanting to pull my hair out because he's got a wide open tight end over the middle of the field and he overthrows the guy. I vividly remember that happening against NIU where like he had a guy wide open. We need to drive down the field and he overthrows him by half a mile and it was to the wrong team. And that's the kind of thing where like if you're a quarterback at a team like Notre Dame, you can't be like that. So that's why I would put him way lower. My next issue,
Um,
what
and
were you
then just to talk about Nico quick, 2,500 passing yards as what's considered his freshman season. His rating's about 12 points higher, even though I'm not a big fan of rating. He's got three more passing touchdowns at 19. Doesn't have the rushing numbers, but he does have over 300 rushing yards. So total yards, he's got more than Riley. He's got less touchdowns, but a far harder schedule. And Nico's losses aren't to NIU, which I think should give him a point.
Yeah, no. Nico is and like all around, except for running, but for being 6'5" or 6'6", I forget. I swear there's different numbers. But with Nico being that massive, his mobility is actually really good for his size. So I can't even shit on that. But like Nico is just a way better all around quarterback. Like he reads the defense way better. He makes better throws. He's more accurate. He's better throwing down the field. A lot of the issues, honestly, I would argue with Nico, like not in issues, but like there was a lot of situations this season where Nico would throw the ball and it would be dropped by the receivers. It wouldn't even be on Nico. There's definitely some instances of him overthrowing receivers, but there's also, if you watch the games, there's a lot of situations where he threw a ball right to the receiver's arms and they just dropped it. Um,
Yeah.
so Nico's really good at throwing the ball downfield. He doesn't get enough credit for being able to do that. He's really good at reading defenses. He's able to scramble out of the pocket if you need him to. He's decent on the run. And his schedule is 10 times harder than Notre Dame's schedule is, along with a good, not all of the list, but a good portion of the list. Tennessee played a lot of really good teams this year. So, and he performed
Um,
pretty well.
And then speaking of the weak schedule section of the list, we have 7 and 8 being Arizona State's Sam Levitt and SMU's Kevin Jennings at 8. So this 7, 8, 9, Levitt, Jennings, Leonard is like the running quarterback trifecta, I would call it. And I just think they got it backwards. Not too much to go into, but I think I'd have Jennings over Levitt as I don't know. I mean, the numbers aren't like great in supporting this, but I do feel like the ACC was harder for SMU. They have three ranked games on their schedule compared to what was it for Rourke here? I don't know where that one went. Or not Rourke for Levitt. Oh, here you are. They had the same amount, but I those teams kind of like flamed out where the ACC teams that we saw and BYU on the schedule, although that's a common opponent that Jennings played, kind of finished a lot stronger than these Big Ten or Big 12 teams. So I would prefer that to be switched, but not a that's kind of a coin flip, I think, for most people. And then the big issue I have with this list is really these Big Ten quarterbacks. I think Ewers can kind of go anywhere. Most of his argument is based on how good he was last year, than so much this year. Um, but Will Howard has beat Curtis Rourke and Drew Aller. I think I'd put Ewers at 3 and then have these Big Ten guys in a row. Um, but Will Howard, not only did he beat Aller and Rourke, he beat him pretty significantly as far as individual play. Curtis Rourke against Ohio State was 8 for 18 passing, which is god awful. He had like 68 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Um, but Will Howard threw for I think like 250 yards that game. Let's see. He had 201 yards. He had 250 or over 200 yards, two touchdowns, a rushing touchdown as well in this one. And as we all know, Ohio State destroyed Indiana. So I think he definitely at least has to be above Curtis Rourke. And then if you move into Drew Aller, this one on the road, so I guess points for Rourke there, but Rourke was just really bad in that game where Will Howard was really good. Um, Against Penn State, Drew Aller was is kind of awful. We all know the goal line stand for Ohio State of not letting Penn State score. Drew Aller had two picks in this one. I was at the game, or he had one pick in it was a pick um for Will Howard and a fumble for Will Howard, but his fumble was on a play where he basically scored a rushing touchdown, but fumbled it through the back of the end zone. And with all this, they still ended up winning the game by a full possession. Will Howard closed it out, running the ball with his legs. And even though he like the only points Penn State had was off of Will Howard pick six, which is I guess a bad look for Will Howard, but they still won the game. So I feel like um definitely has to be above Curtis Rourke. Should be either one above Drew Aller or one below Drew Aller. But I think this season he had the performance against Oregon for Will Howard was very good. And it really, if you just take away the Michigan game, his numbers look a lot better. He's got I think the best quarterback rating of anybody on this list. Maybe one of the like I think Levitt might have it better or Madsen. because of who they played, but I just think Will Howard's got to be at least above Rourke and should be above Alec because he directly beat them and outperformed them in those games.
Heck yeah. Zone out
Like,
crazy. I'm sorry, I did zone out like absolutely incredibly.
oh, you're good. I had a nice rant there, but
No,
I
I,
feel
I was
like
letting you cook.
the same reasoning we put Gabriel as the consensus one because he beat everybody and has good numbers. Um, Will Howard has it used against him for some reason.
Yeah.
So I don't get that, and I don't like Ohio State, so
Yeah, I
I'm
really don't like
supporting
Ohio
him.
State. I'm not a fan at all.
But yeah, I think that's and like we said earlier, I feel like if we ranked like overall, like if we ranked the top 50 college football quarterbacks, I feel like these guys would be so far spread out, like away from the top 12 in this. It'd be like it's impressive that these are the 12 playoff teams.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I guess Gunnar Stockton would count, but Carson Beck would be nowhere near, the top of that list the season he
Yeah.
had. Like we kind of mentioned it, like I think what three of the better SEC quarterbacks aren't in this.
Yeah.
Um,
Arguably the
best
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 ACC
ACC
quarterback.
quarterbacks not in it. Best Big 12 quarterbacks not in it.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, there's a lot of
keep
what
going.
ifs. Also, I think it totally depends on like how you look at the list, how you look at the quarterbacks and how you judge it all. Because like while you were talking about that earlier, like I was thinking you could also think about like what a quarterback does for the team. Like we were talking about how Will Howard has all these weapons that he can work with.
Yes.
But like you also have a quarterback, like I don't know if there's an example. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like Kevin Jennings, he's got a good team around him, but
Yeah,
he's
they
he's
need
mobile and he's able to contribute more to the team. Like he's more
or
valuable to his
like
team.
Sam Leavitt, like we saw Levitt, whatever it is, that we saw in that championship game. It's Scadabo's team. So
Yeah,
like
exactly. That's what
how
I'm saying.
like
Like with Levitt, you could have
yes.
Scatabo go crazy and
Yeah,
he
and
can kind of just sit in the back seat and it's okay. Whereas
like
with Kevin Jennings, like he's got to play 100% for it to be
yeah.
insane. Nico
Like
can let Samson just run and he's just like
yes.
hand the ball off, doesn't have to stat pad, doesn't matter. And the same with honestly Maddox Madsen.
I
Like
was
he,
say Aller as well. Aller's got a lot of
yeah,
talent with they got those two running backs and then they run Tyler Warren at quarterback for some snaps. And then they even on like run packages, they'll bring in their backup, which is like how is your quarterback gonna be three in this if you don't even let him play the whole game? So
yeah, exactly. So I
like
think it's
Cade
very
Klubnik,
subjective.
if Clemson didn't have Cade Klubnik, they would be like not bowl eligible.
Yeah,
Like kind of like
exactly.
how we see FSU with DJ, because that's our other would have been our other option.
Hmm.
Um, any like Riley Leonard's a good example. I feel like Notre Dame with any quarterback would be where they are, maybe even undefeated.
Yeah, no, I think they'd be better with a
Yeah,
slightly better
to
quarterback.
kind of hurt him.
Yeah.
And then like Maddox Madsen, how you can't put him high. It's Genty's team, which
Yeah.
is like, kind of like why did him and Levitt so far spaced out when they kind of have the same like I don't know, like stories around them where it's the running backs team. I'd say Nico a little bit less just because um Samson's gotten kind of taken away in some of those big SEC games where we haven't seen that for Genty.
Yeah.
Like it's the same with Will Howard, as good as their running backs are. Like they didn't run the ball well against Penn State or Michigan. It was Will Howard did stuff to keep them in that Penn State game and an Oregon game for that matter. And then like even Ewers being up there, who did he play? It's like it's kind of the same conversation we had with the playoff rankings, but a little more individualized, looking at stats and looking at like head-to-head matchup stats. I know it's not playing the same defense, but just those things bother me.
Yeah. I agree.
Like Jennings and Cade Klubnik had basically the same great performance in the ACC championship, and they're this far apart. And it's kind of fair, but um, Will Howard destroyed Curtis Rourke, and they're flipped at 5-6, where Klubnik and Jennings balled out together, and they're 2-8. So
Hmm.
just doesn't make sense. But I think that's all we got for today for some CFB talk, right?
Yeah, no, we talked about everything and some. So
We're trying to make good content for you guys.
yeah, we
We're
definitely
gonna
are.
work more on the bets for next week's version of this podcast, and we're gonna keep going with your regularly scheduled NFL content. So, of
Of course.
course,
But yeah, till next time, take a look at our other CFP video. We'll have more coming out, or CFB, I should say. But yeah, we're gonna stick to the normal schedule. This is just kind of like a bonus pod that we wanted to do while college football is winding down and it's hot. So it's kind of a bonus one. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time.